He said old people don't need comfort. He threw my bed in the garage storage room and pointed to the cold floor in the room, saying that there was enough room for me. You're just a nuisance. You don't help, you don't care, you don't serve. Old people take up space. Those were the words that came out of my own son's mouth. The same boy I held with hands shaking with fear when he was born in a cold public hospital room 42 years ago. That night, while the grandchildren slept in rooms with closed windows and warm blankets, I huddled on the floor, feeling my bones crack from the cold. I tried to pull out the old quilt that was left over, sewn by myself during one of the darkest years of my life, a life they think they know, but have no idea. When the house fell silent, and only the hum of the refrigerator broke the emptiness, I heard it, a low voice. It was the daughter-in-law talking on the phone. At first I thought it was common whispering, but then I understood the words. It won't last much longer. When the insurance comes out, the house will only be in our name. My heart stopped. The insurance. I didn't even remember it existed. Who had done that? And why? This was more than humiliation. That was flat. That was danger. My name is Lucía Velásquez. I'm 67 years old. I've been many things. But today I'm just the grandmother who lives at the back of her son's house, trying not to bother him. I've worked as a cleaner, a caregiver for the elderly, and a community cook. At every function, I wore the most peaceful face I could. But this house here, where I am now treated like an old piece of furniture, was once my home. I was the one who paid her entry. I was the one who saved every penny hidden from the eyes of the police in the years when my life was made up of well-told lies and cursed decisions. I never told my son where the money that supported his studies came from. I invented that I received a pension from a fictitious deceased person. Today he says I didn't do anything for him. That just gets in the way. That getting old is different from rotting, and that I am the second option. I don't know exactly when I lost respect in this house. Maybe it was the day he found an old letter hidden inside the Bible, written by someone he didn't know, but who knew too much. Maybe it was when the neighbors started whispering, thinking that my past followed me like a shadow. What I know is that I've been silently accepting it for years. Every rudeness, every slight, every dirty dish thrown in front of me without a look. I swallowed all of this. I swallowed it out of love for my grandchildren, who still hug me when no one sees. But that night was different, because what I heard went beyond contempt. It was calculation. It was intention. It was a woman married to my son talking about my death as if it were a clause in a contract. And he responded. He responded with a silence that hurt more than a scream. They were silent. Then they turned off the light, and I remained there on the floor, pretending to sleep, pretending I didn't hear. The cold was no longer the problem. It was fear, not dying, but dying without anyone knowing who I was. During breakfast the next day, he looked at me as if I were invisible. He asked if I could leave the house for a few hours, as they would have visitors. Without saying a word, I picked up my battered bag and went for a walk. But it wasn't a walk. I was looking for clues. Something in the pit of my stomach said this was going to get worse, and quickly. I needed to remember who I was, and more importantly, what could still be. By the time I was in my early 20s, I was known by a name that no one else dared say. I was the wife of a dangerous man. I joined the game because I thought it was the only way to protect my eldest daughter. Today, that daughter doesn't speak to me. You think I chose money. You think I ran away. But the truth is that I was forced to disappear, to hide, to sacrifice. And now, at the end of life, the ghosts are returning. And I need to decide, will I remain silent once again, or will I finally tell everything? If you're watching this story and have ever felt that age has become synonymous with weakness in the eyes of others, stay here with me. If you have ever been silenced, humiliated, or forgotten by your own family, this story is for you. Here on the Emotion of Age channel, we show that it is never too late to regain dignity. Never. Even if you have gone through hell that no one can imagine. So leave your like, activate the bell, and subscribe. Because what's coming is not a victim's story. It's the story of someone who was thrown to the ground and decided to get up, even with old bones, even with a tired soul. What I heard that night was just the beginning. And believe me, what I discovered later was much worse. There are things that we only understand after we are 60. There are betrayals that only hurt when they come from our own. And there are secrets that, when they are revealed, don't just hurt. They set everything around on fire. That morning, when I walked through the streets of the neighborhood without a specific destination, Feeling the sun beating down on my skin as if trying to awaken something inside me took me back to a time I've been trying to bury for decades. Because there is no point in trying to hide what is already engraved in the flesh. On the outside, I am a lady with slow steps and tired eyes. Inside, I am made of scars, some physical, most invisible. And they all started in a place where no girl should grow up. I was born in the interior of Jujuy, a small, arid province, squeezed between the heat of the earth and the weight of men. My father drank, my mother prayed. Neither of them protected me. At 11 years old, I already knew the taste of hunger, silence, and fear. I grew up hearing that obedient women are beaten less. At 13, I was sent to work as a maid in the house of some distant relatives on the border with Paraguay. But nobody paid me. They gave me leftover food, a torn mattress on the floor, and an endless list of tasks. And it was there that, hidden among dish towels and old brooms, I heard conversations between men talking about routes, weapons, and deliveries. It was as if crime was everywhere, disguised as normality. At 17, I met Javier. He called me a star, told me that I was more than that he was going to get me out of there. He was 29 years old and had the smile of someone who had already done a lot of things wrong and survived. He gave me new clothes, good food, and a real bed. Only later did I discover the price. Javier was responsible for moving dirty money between accounts in Argentina and Spain, using false names, shell companies, and young women like me to carry suitcases and take the blame if something went wrong. I took my first trip when I was 18. I went by bus to Buenos Aires with a suitcase that I was told not to open. When I arrived, I made $1,000. It was more than I had ever seen in my life. That money was used to pay for tests for my mother, who had been coughing up blood for months. I couldn't save her. He died 2 months later, but with clean sheets and hot soup. Javier told me that this was just the beginning, and it was. For 5 years, I was part of a system that paid me not to ask questions. She carried documents, signed papers, sometimes carried cash, in her bra or between the seams of her purse. It was easy not to overthink things when the payoff was immediate. I bought a simple house. I sent money to my uncles. I took care of my younger brother until he joined the army. I thought I was building something, until you get pregnant. My daughter was born in a rented room in Barcelona. Alone, in pain and fear, I looked at that child and thought, I need to get out of this. But it's not easy to leave when you know too much. When you are a woman, a mother, and disposable. Javier changed over time. From a protective lover, he became a calculating boss. He controlled my every step. When I threatened to leave, he disappeared with my daughter for 2 days. He said it was to teach me to obey. It was at that point that I understood that I was a piece in the game, not the player. And I started hiding documents, copies, vouchers, recordings. Every time we did something bigger, I found a way to save some proof. I didn't know exactly what for, but something in me said that it could save me one day, or at least save my daughter. And when the opportunity presented itself, I ran. I was arrested at the border with the United States. They took a folder containing more than 20 false passports. I took the blame alone. They said I would get 30 years. I got 9. No denunciation, no agreement. 9 years in silence. 9 years of missing my daughter, who was taken far away to a place they swore was safe. In prison, I was a cook, dressmaker, advisor to other women who got there for similar reasons. I made friends that I never saw again. I sewed a quilt with pieces of clothing from prisoners who had already left. It was my way of remembering that even those who make mistakes deserve dignity. In the last year of my sentence, I received a letter in my daughter's handwriting. Like, straight. He said he was fine, but that he preferred not to see me. That destroyed me more than the cell. When I left, I changed my name. I used the few real documents I had left. I went to another city, where my son welcomed me as if I were a distant aunt. I said I had lived abroad, worked as a maid. Nobody asked much. He was 12 years old and thought I was a decent woman, and I did everything to maintain that illusion. I worked as a caregiver, washed bathrooms, cooked for the elderly. I saved every penny and put the house in his name, thinking that would guarantee my future. How ironic. The nights were long, and the fear returned in dreams. I saw Javier in the hallway, my daughter in her crib crying, my dirty reflection in broken mirrors. I've never been free, neither inside nor outside. but I convinced myself that hiding was protecting. And now, so many years later, perhaps it was the opposite. Maybe the silence has transformed me into this shadow of a woman who accepts humiliation in exchange for a roof over their heads. If you're listening to this and feel like your past still haunts you, know that you're not alone. If you carry guilt, pain, or regret, but still breathe, there is still time. Here at the Emotion of Age channel, we believe that even the darkest stories deserve light. Leave your comment telling us which sacrifice marked your life. And if you haven't done so yet, subscribe, activate the bell, and stay with me, because I will show that the truth, no matter how painful it may be, is always the first step to regaining dignity. After that night, nothing went back to what it was. I would wake up before the sun, pretend to prepare coffee, wash the dishes, pretend not to hear. The bedroom floor, where my bed should have been, started leaving marks on my hips, silent purples that no one noticed. The body ages quickly when the spirit rots from within. And what hurt most wasn't the contempt, it was doubt, the uncertainty about how far they would be willing to go. Did they plan to admit me, sedate me, or worse? My daughter-in-law's voice on the phone couldn't get out of my head. That wasn't a rant. It was calculation, coldness. She spoke about my death with a tone of convenience, and he, my son, remained silent, a silence that killed me in parts. I started observing more. Every look, every whisper, every hastily closed door. They started to change the way they spoke around me. And everything became clearer the day I accidentally walked into the room and saw the computer screen open with a sales contract for the house. My name was there, but the signature wasn't mine. I stood still for a few seconds, not breathing. Then I closed the door and went back to the room, where I only had the thin mattress and the prison quilt. I sat down, put my hand on my chest, and felt my heart beating out of rhythm. I realized it wasn't just a plan. It was an ongoing process. They were speeding things up. Maybe they thought I no longer had the strength, that my head was weak, that I was an old woman who was easy to erase. I remembered the copies of the old documents, the recordings that I had hidden so many years ago. And for the first time in decades, I thought about using them, but I had no idea where they were. Had they been taken during the move? Burnt during one of the moments of escape? Or were they still inside that sewing box, along with the red thread and rusty needles? The following week, everything started to get worse. One of the grandchildren, the oldest, started avoiding me. He wouldn't look me in the eye. He didn't answer when I asked something. I discovered that I had heard the parents arguing in the bedroom about what to do with the old lady before she completely loses her mind and causes legal problems. That ended what was left of peace. I went to school to pick him up one day. I waited for him to come out of the gate and smiled, but he stopped, looked around and pretended he didn't see me. He walked quickly to the other sidewalk. There, in the middle of the cracked sidewalk, I knew. I had become a problem even for the little ones. The shame was spreading like poison. That same day, at night, I went into the kitchen and heard my son saying he was tired of spending money on people who don't produce anything. She replied that she had already spoken to the family lawyer. It would only be a matter of time. I returned to the room, shaking. I took an old notebook and started writing down everything I remembered from the documents. Dates, names, addresses, everything that could one day turn into proof. Because if I were going to disappear, I would at least leave something behind that explains who I was and why I chose to remain silent for so long. 2 days later, I went downtown and looked for a woman I met in prison. I knew she worked in a small thrift store, selling used clothes and old books. When I entered the store, she looked at me in amazement. He said he wouldn't recognize me if it weren't for my eyes. He said that he now helped former inmates obtain documents, assistance, and legal guidance. We sat in the back of the store, among donation boxes and the musty smell. I told everything. She was silent, then held my hand and said I wasn't the only one, that many of us, after a lifetime of trying to fix what was broken, were treated like dirt by those we protected most. She gave me the number of a young lawyer, daughter of an ex-convict herself. She told me that maybe she could guide me. I returned home with a heavier heart, but with something new, momentum. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't completely alone, but there was still fear and doubts. In the evening, I received an unexpected visitor, the daughter I abandoned. Out of nowhere, he appeared at the gate. She found out, I don't know from whom, that I was going through difficulties. She didn't want to go in. He stood outside, looking at me with anger and sadness. He said he wasn't coming for forgiveness. He said he just wanted to look into my eyes and see if I was still human. I tried to explain, but the words choked. L.A. left before I said what really mattered. The next day, I found my son waiting for me with an envelope on the kitchen table. It was a letter from the lawyer. He asked me to sign a document definitively transferring ownership of the house to him, citing security and stability issues. I was silent. He said it was better for everyone, that I was too confused, forgetting things, giving myself trouble, that it was time to stop pretending to be in charge of something. If you've come this far and feel that, like me, you've already been put aside as if your story was worthless, then comment below, right where you are watching from. Because this story is not just mine. It belongs to all the women who gave everything, and when they no longer had anything to give, they were treated like a burden. Sign up, activate the bell, and leave your like, because what's coming next will show that no one should underestimate a woman who survived prison, hunger, guilt, and silence. I was about to remember who I was, and they would regret trying to erase me. The morning after delivering the envelope, it rained. Those fine rains that seemed to wash the world without making a sound. I got up before everyone else, walked to the gate and looked at the empty street. The drops ran down my face, and for a moment, I wished it were that easy to erase everything. May the water wash away the names, the lies, the mistakes. But the truth doesn't leak. It weighs, and it accumulates in the corners of the soul like forgotten dust. I went back inside and found my daughter-in-law in the hallway. She looked at me with contempt. He said that I was wetting the floor, that it no longer made sense for me to go out alone in the morning, that I was starting to worry people. I smiled, a short, almost empty smile. Because in that instant, I understood. It wasn't about money anymore, not even about space. It was about eliminating, make me disappear with the appearance of care, admit, declare incapable, to switch off. They no longer hid it. At lunch, my son placed the papers on the table. He said it was a simple authorization just to ensure that the house was safe, that no one could manipulate me. He repeated these words as if he were reading from a script, and for the first time, I looked straight into his eyes. He hesitated. The daughter-in-law nudged him under the table. I saw. Everything about them was an act. There, inside the house I built with the remains of a stained life, I was just another nuisance with an expiration date. When I finished washing the dishes, I went back to my room. The sewing box was there in the corner, the same one where, years before, I hid old documents and tapes. I knelt down and, among threads, needles, and pieces of faded cloth, I found a brown envelope. Inside, 4 folded sheets, records of bank transactions, tickets purchased with my name, and voices recorded on a cassette tape that I managed to transfer to a pen drive with the help of an acquaintance in the neighborhood. Those proofs might not have saved me completely, but they showed part of the truth. And in that moment, any bit of truth was all I had. On the same day, I decided to visit the lawyer that the woman at the thrift store recommended to me. Young, with firm eyes and direct speech. I explained everything. I showed the papers. She listened without interrupting. Then he said the situation was serious, that if they were trying to declare me incompetent on no medical basis, there was a way, that if documents were forged, there could be a crime, and if I had proof, I also had a chance. But I needed to decide quickly. I returned home with my heart racing. I found the daughter-in-law on the phone, laughing. When he saw me, he hung up immediately. He pretended he was talking to a friend. He said I looked tired, that maybe it was time to look for a better place for myself. He said he knew a good asylum with psychological care that could help me accept my new phase. I held the quilt tightly in my hands, the same one I sewed together with pieces of women who, like me, were thrown to the bottom of the world. The quilt was the only thing that reminded me that I was still someone. That night, I prepared dinner as usual. I sat at the table. They ate in silence, until the youngest of the grandchildren, with still innocent eyes, asked why his grandmother was always sad. The daughter-in-law said, smiling, that it was age, and I, looking at that boy, knew that I could no longer remain silent. The next day, I called my son to talk. I spoke calmly. He said he knew about the plans, that she wasn't crazy, not weak, that he had proof. He laughed, a short, nervous, mocking laugh, said I was delusional, that if he continued with these stories, he would call a doctor himself. And then, in the cruelest moment of all, he approached me and said in my ear that if I really had any proof, let me show it, because no one would believe a woman with a criminal history, an ex-convict, old, uneducated, and abandoned by her own daughter. Fee. I lay motionless for a while. Then he left the room, slamming the door. It was there, in that space of silence and hatred, that my body began to shake, not out of fear, but with an old, contained fury that had been hiding behind submission for years. I looked at myself in the mirror, the scarred face, the sunken eyes, but still alive. I wasn't weak, I was tired, and there is a huge difference between the two things. I sat down, took a deep breath, and made the most difficult decision of my life. I was going to fight, not for revenge, but for dignity. I was going to tell everything. Whether they listened to me or not was another story, but no one else was going to speak for me. No one else was going to decide where I should sleep, what I should sign, or what name I should carry. If you are listening to this and have ever lived through a moment when everything seemed lost, know that there is a fine line between fear and courage, and sometimes all you need is to cross that line. If you've ever felt like shouting to the world that you're not what they say you are, that there's still someone out there, then this story is yours too. Comment below when you said enough was enough. Share with someone who needs to remember that dignity has no age. And don't forget to subscribe, activate the bell, and leave your like, because now it's my turn to speak, and they will listen. The day after that decision, I woke up before the sun. My body ached, as if every part of me knew something was about to change. The house was silent. In the kitchen, just the sound of the clock and the smell of old coffee. I sat with the quilt on my knees and let time pass. It was as if the wait was necessary for courage to take shape within me. I took the flash drive with the recordings and put it in my coat pocket. I also took the old yellowed papers with dates that resurfaced after so many years buried. I went back to the lawyer's office. When I walked in, she was talking on the phone, but as soon as she saw me, she hung up. I sat down, handed over the documents and the flash drive. She read everything carefully, her eyes attentive without rushing. When he finished, he took a deep breath and said that that was more than enough to open a defense case, that there were elements there that pointed to attempted fraud, signature forgery, psychological abuse, and even a possible conspiracy to remove me from the house based on lies. At that time, I felt something strange. It wasn't joy, it was relief, a silent relief that almost made me cry. For the first time in a long time, someone listened to me without looking judgmental. For the first time, I wasn't just a clumsy old woman. I was a woman with history, with evidence, with a past. The lawyer said we needed a witness, someone who could confirm my lucidity. I told the judge that I was fully aware of what was happening. That's when I remembered the woman from the thrift store. I went back there and asked for help. She didn't hesitate. He said he would accompany me, that he would tell me what he knew, that he would confirm that I was sober, lucid, and completely aware of everything. Back at the house, I noticed a strange atmosphere. The daughter-in-law was nervous. The son was quieter than usual. At night, I heard a muffled argument in their room. He said that something had gone wrong, that perhaps it was better to back off. She insisted, talked about doctors, reports, pressure. They knew that I knew, and they were trying to race against time. The next morning, I did something I never imagined I would do. I called my daughter, the same one I left when I was still little, the same one who grew up thinking I left because I wanted to. The call was short. She answered in silence. When I heard her breathing on the other end, my voice cracked. He said he needed to see her, that there was something only she could understand. She replied that she didn't promise anything, but that she would think about it. He hung up before I said what I really wanted, which was to apologize. 2 days later, the lawyer filed a formal request to block the sale of the house. He also attached the evidence of forgery and abuse. The process went quickly. The judge granted a preventive measure and called a preliminary hearing to analyze the facts. When I received the official notification with my name as the rightful party, I cried alone on the balcony, not for revenge, but because it was the first time I saw, in writing, that the courts could still consider me someone. That night, as I sat down to dinner, my son looked at me with hatred. He asked what I had done. I pretended I didn't understand. He stood up, slammed his hand on the table, and screamed. The daughter-in-law tried to calm him down. The grandchildren came down scared. It was chaos. So, in front of everyone, I said in a low but firm voice that I knew everything, that the false signatures had been handed over to the courts, that the audios were saved, that I was no longer a woman hidden behind silence. They told me to shut up. They said I was crazy, but their eyes trembled, and there, I knew, they were with fear. The next day, I received a message from my daughter. She wanted to see me. We scored in a downtown square. When I saw her arriving, I recognized her posture, the way she walked, the look from afar. There was something of mine there. She sat next to me, silent. We stayed for a few minutes without saying anything. Afterwards, she asked if everything they said about me was true. I counted, not what they said, but what actually happened. I talked about crime, prison, choices, from fear, of love, from abandonment. She listened to me without interrupting. In the end, he said he didn't know if he could forgive, but now he understood. I returned home with my heart in ruins, but whole. I had told the truth. It was no longer a rotten secret hidden within musty walls. It was real, and because it was real, it hurt, but it freed. Justice was underway. The process grew, and with each new step, my son and his wife lost control of the situation. They began to walk tensely, avoiding looking at me. The daughter-in-law disappeared for 2 days. When he came back, he didn't say a word to me. The following week, I received a visit from an investigator. It was investigating reports of attempted fraud involving elderly people. She said that other women in the region had experienced similar situations. He saw my documentation, wrote down everything, and said that my report could help other people. That gave me a purpose, a reason to continue. If you are following this story and have already felt that the truth was buried under layers of silence, leave your comment. Write the word justice, because justice, when it begins, has the power to shake old structures. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and leave your like. Because what comes now is not just the confrontation with them, it's the reunion with myself. And this time, no one will shut me up. On the day of the hearing, I woke up before my alarm clock. I didn't sleep the whole night. I spent hours staring at the ceiling, turning sentences over in my head, remembering all the times I swallowed what I wanted to say. That morning, I wore the same clothes I wore when I got out of prison. A simple, dark blue dress with a crooked seam on the right shoulder. It was my way of reminding myself where I came from and how far I've come, even with everything going against me. On the way to the forum, the sky was cloudy, heavy, as if he also knew that that day would change everything. The lawyer met me at the entrance. She held my hand tightly and told me I didn't need to prove anything other than the truth. We walked through the cold corridors to the courtroom. The air there smelled of old paper and fear. On the other side of the room were my son and daughter-in-law. He's in a dark suit. His face is tense. His gaze is averted. She held a bag as if trying to make one last defense. Neither of them looked me in the eye. It didn't need to. What we had to say was already in the evidence, in the recordings, in the documents that were finally going to see the light of day. The judge entered. Everyone stood up. My heart was beating so hard I thought I could hear the sound outside my chest. The hearing began. The lawyer presented the data calmly and precisely. He showed the fake signatures, the audios, the histories. He explained the strange movement in attempts to sell the house. He pointed to me and said, I wasn't just an old woman. He was the victim of a planned erasure attempt. On the other side, their lawyer was trying to turn everything around. He said I was confused, that I was manipulative, that I probably suffered from some memory disorder. But when the judge gave me the floor, I stood up. My knees hurt, but my voice was steady. I told the truth. I told him where the money for the house came from. I told him about prison. I told him about the daughter I lost, the son I raised, and who was now trying to bury me alive without having to kill me. I spoke calmly, no anger, but with the strength of someone who spent a lifetime in silence. I said they humiliated me, isolated me, called me a nuisance. That took away my right to exist as a human being. And now, there, in front of justice, I only wanted what was rightfully mine: respect, protection, and the right to continue living without fear. The silence in the room was absolute, until the judge asked to listen to the audios. The recordings were played where my daughter-in-law clearly said that I wouldn't last long and that insurance would solve everything. They also heard the part where my son silently agreed. Tension filled the room. For the first time, I saw both of them lower their heads. The judge suspended the session for a few minutes. When we got back, he went straight. He said that the signs of attempted fraud were serious, that the audios clearly showed a plan to remove me from the house in a manipulative way, and that the criminal case regarding forgery would be forwarded to the public ministry. When I left the room, I found my daughter waiting for me in the hallway. She hugged me. I didn't say anything. He just hugged me. And that was more valuable than any sentence, because at that moment, I knew my voice had finally arrived, where I needed it, inside her, inside me. I returned home late in the afternoon. The daughter-in-law was no longer there. The son had also left. Only the grandchildren were in the living room, watching television. One of them looked at me and asked if I was okay. I replied yes. And now, everything was going to start to change. For the first time, I spoke to them about what had happened. Not all the details, but enough to let them know that I was more than the silent grandmother in the back of the house. In the following days, the two were summoned for testimony. The investigations continued. The judge determined that I could not be removed from the house without a court order, and that any financial transactions involving my name must be authorized by me, in writing, with 2 witnesses. My son stopped talking to me. It passed by me as if I were a wall. But I no longer felt afraid. No pain. I only felt the real weight of the truth. And with that weight, I learned to walk upright again. If you are here, listening to this part of the story, and have ever faced a situation where you were silenced, discredited, or tried to erase your existence, right below, write the word strength, because strength is not about not falling. It's about getting up, even when everything pushes you to the ground. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and activate the bell, because this story isn't over yet, and what comes now is the hardest of all. Living after the war. It has been 8 months since the day of the hearing. The season has changed. The leaves from the trees have fallen. The days have gotten shorter, and I, for the first time in a long time, breathe without the weight of hiding. I still live in the same house, but not in the same place. The difference is within me. The room where I used to sleep on the floor now has a new firm bed with a dark blue blanket that I got from a neighbor. The quilt I made in prison is still with me, folded on the armchair as a reminder of everything I survived. Each stitch sewn there carries the name of a woman who, like me, was judged by the past and ignored in the present. My son moved out 2 months ago. He said he needed time, distance, peace. I didn't insist. I need these things too. His daughter-in-law left before him and took the grandchildren. They haven't visited me again yet, but I know that one day when they grow up, they will understand. Sometimes, the answers we need don't come from talking. They come with time, and I'm learning to wait. With the support of the lawyer and the woman at the thrift store, I started attending a group of women over 60 who meet every Friday to talk, embroider, read old letters, and laugh about stories that were once tragedies. Most there were also discarded by the family. Some experienced violence. Others were forgotten after they raised their children. One of them was a pastor for 40 years until she was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's and abandoned by the church. We all have something in common. We survived the silence. With the help of the group, I learned to use my cell phone with more confidence. I made an account on a short video social network where, with an anonymous profile, I tell parts of my story. I don't give my name. I only use my voice. I speak like someone writing letters to the past. And, to my surprise, thousands of people listen, comment, share. Some write to me saying that they too have been silenced, who saw themselves in me, that because of me, they decided to speak. I didn't expect any of this, but maybe that's what they call a fresh start. Today, I live on a monthly amount guaranteed by court decision, in addition to a small disability pension. It's not much, but it's enough. The house is now in my name again, with legal restrictions that prevent further fraud attempts. I take care of the plants in the yard. I have a small vegetable garden with basil, rosemary, and tomatoes. Sometimes I sell dried spices to neighbors and churches in the region. It's not money that changes your life, but it's a sign that I can still build something with my own hands. My daughter visits me once a month, comes slowly, without promises. We sit on the balcony, drink tea, and talk about whatever we can. We don't always touch on the past. Sometimes we just talk about the flowers she bought, the soap opera she watched, the book she finished. But the silence between us is no longer a wall. It's just space, and space is also a form of care. The other day she told me that maybe one of her grandchildren would want to meet me, a boy who lives with her. He is 12 years old, the age my son was when he welcomed me for the first time and called me mother without knowing who I was. Maybe now life is offering me a second chance to do something different. I'm no longer afraid of loneliness. She taught me that it's better to be alone than in places where they treat you like someone else. I also learned that love is not about accepting anything. It's not about being silent, shrinking, or ceasing to exist to fit into the spaces that others allow. Real love begins when we look at each other with respect. And today, when I look in the mirror, I see another woman destroyed. I see someone who went to the bottom and came back. The lawyer who helped me now coordinates a defense project for elderly victims of emotional violence. He said that my case served as the basis for approving a new ordinance in the region, protecting the right of elderly women to maintain autonomy over their property. Sometimes he invites me to speak in conversation circles. I tell my story calmly, without hate, not because I forgot, but because counting on serenity is my way of showing that I survived. If you've stayed this far, listening to every part of this journey, I ask you one thing. Write the word dignity in the comments, because that's what kept me standing when everything tried to bend me. It wasn't money, it wasn't power, it wasn't forgiveness. It was dignity, that intimate, silent feeling that even with my mistakes, I still deserved respect. If you know someone who is going through something similar, share this story. It could be that she is the spark that someone needs to say, enough is enough. Subscribe to the channel here, activate the bell, and leave your like. Here we don't tell stories about those who are left in the past. We tell stories of those who decided to live again, even after everything. Because it's never too late to regain your voice. It's never too late to start over with truth. And it's never too late to remember that, even at 70, there is still time to be whole. Today, the sun came through the window with a different calm, as if to say, I could get some rest. That, for now, everything was in its place. The kettle whistled in the kitchen, and the smell of chamomile tea filled the air. I sat on the porch with the quilt over my knees, as always. But this time, I wasn't invaded by painful memories, just for silence. And it was in that silence that I realized that after so long, life had stopped pushing me, and he started listening to me. Sometimes I wonder what would have become of me if I had accepted what they wanted, if only I had signed those papers, if I had let them take me as if I were an old piece of furniture, if I had accepted the asylum, the medicine, the room without a window, I probably wouldn't be here. Maybe she was alive, but lifeless. No name, no story, no truth. And that's why I insist, even if no one else is. Listening, we need to talk. Talk about what they did to us. Talk about what we survived. Talk to whoever comes after us. 2 weeks ago, I received an unexpected invitation. A public school here in the region wanted me to speak to older students about human rights and aging. I was in doubt. I thought I had nothing to say, but the teacher insisted. She said my story had come to her through a support network that now uses videos like mine to open conversations with teens. I went. I said little, but in the end, a girl with her hair tied up came up to me, hugged me, and said that her grandmother was experiencing something similar, that no one in the family believed her, and now she wanted to hear more. It broke me inside, but it also healed me. I didn't know that telling my pain could stop someone else's pain. I didn't know that my voice, which was silent for so long, could open doors for other voices. Since then, I agreed to participate in a new project, a listening circle with women between 60 and 80 years old, where each one tells what they couldn't tell before. There are stories there that hurt like a knife, but there is also laughter. There's coffee and cake. There's a hug. And above all, it is true. We sit in a circle because no one is bigger than anyone else, and we all have the same desire to be treated like people until the end. My daughter now calls more often. We are still rebuilding ourselves, a relationship made of pieces and mended threads. Sometimes she corrects me when I'm too silent. He says he no longer needs to protect himself from me, that I can talk, and I speak, carefully, with time, with respect for what she felt and what I felt too. She brought her grandson to meet me, a shy boy with attentive eyes. He looked at me for a while, then asked if I had really been arrested. I said yes. He didn't judge. I just said that now I understood why I knew so many things about the world. And then he asked me to teach him how to sew. In the backyard, he helps me with the vegetable garden. The other day, We planted sunflower seeds. He said he read that sunflowers always follow the light. I stared at him, thinking if maybe this was what had been missing in my life for so long. Light. Now I understand that, even in the dark, if we have someone who sees us, it is enough to resist. Justice continues its course. My son and ex-daughter-in-law face charges of attempted fraud and abuse of an incapacitated person. The last hearing was tough. He said he was sorry, but he didn't look me in the eye. I didn't say anything. Not out of contempt, but because his pain doesn't belong to me. I did what I had to do, and I follow. I don't harbor hate, I keep memory. So that naked never try to erase a woman like me again. In the videos I post, I started to end with a phrase that has almost become a motto. I always say, it's never too late to talk, and it's never too late to be heard. Some people send messages telling about their own cases. Others just say thank you. But what moves me most are those who write with a single word, dignity, because it is what unites us all. She is the one who, even in silence, screams inside us when something is wrong. If you have come this far and felt that this story, in some way, touched the deepest part of you, now write the word hope, because it is with her that I want to end this part of my life. Not bitterly, not afraid, but with the hope that what I experienced will help
other people not have to go through the same thing. May my voice continue to echo even when I am no longer here. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, share this story with those who are silent, and always remember, no one is too small to deserve respect. No age is too late to start again. And no truth is insignificant when it comes from a heart that still beats. The other day I was asked if I regret everything. The question came from a young woman who heard me speak at a community library. She had curious but steady eyes. I wanted to know if I would change anything, if I could go back in time. I was silent for a few seconds, not because I didn't know the answer, but because I didn't want to answer in a hurry. And then I said that if I could go back, maybe I would have spoken sooner. I would have faced the shame, the fear, the guilt. I would have chosen my own voice instead of allowing others to speak for me. But no, I don't regret surviving, of having lied to protect the one I loved, of having done what I thought needed to be done when no one else offered me a way out. Since that day, I've thought a lot about the difference between guilt and responsibility. Guilt is a chain, holds us back. It silences us. Responsibility, no. She is fair weight. We carry it, learn it, and then give it back to the world in the form of wisdom. Today, what I do is not pay a debt. It's giving back, with awareness, what I learned in pain. And this return gives me peace. The group of women I meet with has grown. Now there are more than 30 of us. Some arrive quiet, suspicious, with their shoulders hunched and their hands hidden in their laps. But after a few weeks, they talk. Sometimes they tell stories that they didn't even know were hidden. One of them said that, upon hearing my story, she found the courage to report her grandson who was physically attacking her. Another managed to regain control of her own bank account, which was being used without consent by her son-in-law. Small things for those who see it from the outside, but huge things for those who live in the dark. We organized a kind of memory workshop. Each one writes parts of their own life on pieces of cloth. Then we sewed everything together into large colored panels. We call them dignity blankets. Each point is a statement. Each line is a calmly stitched scream. We have already had 3 exhibitions. And in all of them, I saw people crying in front of the embroidered stories. People who never imagined that behind a lady with white hair, there could be a past so dense, so full of struggle, loss, and difficult choices. I also started participating in virtual meetings with women from other countries. We speak via video, in Portuguese, in Spanish, sometimes silently with our eyes. A lady from Valencia told me that, when she watched my video, for the first time, she felt that she was not alone. She was also tried for something that happened 40 years ago. He said he was never able to get close to his daughter again. Now you want to write a letter, and asked for my help. We are doing it together. With each story I hear, I understand that my pain is not isolated. It is part of a larger fabric, a fabric that was torn by decades of silence, but which is now beginning to be sewn together by firm hands. Hands of women who refuse to disappear without a trace, not out of vanity, but for justice, by memory, for dignity. My daughter now smiles more often when she sees me. Bring books, share recipes,
Ask about the garden. The other day he told me that he regrets taking so long to return. I said her time is the right time. And the most important thing is not when we return, but the fact that we don't give up on the path. My youngest grandson wrote an essay at school about the bravest person he knows, chose me. When I read the text, I cried. He said I taught him that courage is not fighting with strength, but speaking truthfully. What courage it is to continue even after having lost everything. And that he wants to be someone who never lets a person be silenced. Justice against my son and ex-daughter-in-law is still ongoing. I do not wish evil, but I also don't want silence. I want the truth to be fulfilled, and that the system understands that emotional violence and erasure of the elderly are real crimes that hurt, that leave marks, and they need to be combated with the same rigor as any other form of abuse. If you've come this far and feel that your story also contains silenced parts, write the word memory in the comments, because that's what it's all about now. Keep alive the memory of who we were, who we are, and everything we need to endure to remain here. And if this story helped you think about someone who might be too quiet, share it. Sometimes a video like this can be the only window that person has to listen to themselves again. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, leave your like. Here, each story told is a bridge built between those who were invisible and those who still have something to say. And remember, dignity is not a prize. It's a right that no one will take away from me. Recently, I've been thinking more calmly about the end. Not the end as a tragedy or as a punishment, but the end as a natural part of the trajectory. I no longer think about death with fear, but with responsibility. I don't want to leaving confusion, debt, silence, or hurt. I want you to know when I'm gone that there was a woman here. A whole woman, not perfect, but complete in what she lived, in what she suffered, and in what she chose to repair. I started organizing my papers. I took a wooden box, the kind that stores old letters, and I put everything inside. I wrote notes by hand explaining what each thing was. The house document, the will, the lawyer's contact details, bank passwords, information about the garden in case anyone wants to continue taking care of it. I also included a letter for my daughter, another for my grandson. Not with advice, but with memories, things that maybe one day will make sense to them. I don't want to leave a legacy. I want to make it clear. I also wrote a letter to myself, a letter that will be read when I know that my body can't take it anymore. In it, I say I am at peace, that I forgave what I had to forgive, that I let go of what I could no longer carry, and that above all, I was able to see myself as someone worth remembering. This letter is not for others to think I was strong. It's so that I don't forget that, despite all the falls, I kept walking. I returned to visit the place where my mother was buried. It's been decades since she left, but only now have I been able to look at her grave without anger. She didn't know how to protect me, it's true, but perhaps she was also silenced by fears I don't even know if I can imagine. I wrote her name on a piece of cloth on our dignity blanket. I sewed it with gold thread because her pain was also part of my strength. Honoring the past, even the most difficult one, is a type of reconciliation that only maturity allows. I also made a list of the things I still want to experience, little things. Drinking coffee in silence in a park, hearing my daughter call me mother naturally, teaching my grandson how to make rice without burning the bottom of the pan, see a whole night of stars without thinking about any bills to pay. Maybe I'll meet one of the women who sewed the prison quilt with me. Tell her we survived, that we stood, that we now have a voice. I also wrote for a local radio show. I told my story in short and asked them to talk on air about silent violence against the elderly. They didn't mention my name, but they read part of what I sent. And after that, the support group phone rang for days. Women asking for help, children wanting to understand, regretful caregivers. I realized that sometimes a public whisper has more power than a private scream. A younger neighbor asked me if I'm afraid of dying alone. I replied no. I've been alone when everyone was around. Today, even when I am silent, I know that there are people who listen to me. I have names, I have faces, I have people who remember me not as the old woman at the back of the house, but as the one who spoke, who resisted, who inspired. That's all I need. I know the body has limits. Sometimes the knee fails, sometimes the chest tightens, sometimes the memory slips, but that doesn't define me. What defines me is what I decided to do with what I experienced. And what I decided was not to accept the end as erasure. The end, for me, will be a worthy closure, a final point written with the same firmness with which I learned to sew together the words and pains of my life. If you've listened this far, I thank you. Maybe you're young and listening out of curiosity. Maybe you're my age or older and you're looking for a mirror. Maybe you're caring for someone who no longer speaks, but who looks at you with a pain you don't understand. To all of you, I say, look at this person as someone they still are, not as someone who was. Because the end is not the end as long as there is presence, as long as there is truth, as long as there is someone willing. I'm listening. If this story touched you in any way, write the word presence here in the comments. Presence is what is most lacking at the end of life, and it's also what heals the most. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, share this. I have video with someone who needs to feel seen. Because dignity is not about dying surrounded by things. It's dying remembered as someone who had a voice, who had a story, who had the courage not to disappear in silence. There are things that we carry for so long that we no longer know where the pain ends and the habit begins. I always thought I had told everything, that there was nothing left in storage. But in the last few days, something inside me began to throb, an old, muffled memory that was forgotten between the cracks of my history. I resisted, as I always have. I told myself it wasn't important, that no one needed to know. But the truth is that I needed it, not for others, for me. It was early in the morning, the kind where the whole house is asleep and only the sound of the wind comes in through the cracks. I got up slowly, without making a sound. I sat on the edge of the bed, with the quilt over my legs. I took out a notebook that I keep hidden between the sheets, the one where I write down everything I can't say out loud. I opened it to a blank page and started writing. The hand shook, breathing failed, but the words came, one after the other, as if they had been waiting for this moment for years. The confession I made that morning was not about crime, money, or family betrayal. It was about guilt. Guilt for a choice that no one ever forced me to make. When I ran away with Javier, in the first years when everything seemed like an adventure, I already knew what he did. I knew who he was dealing with, and yet I accepted, not because I was forced, but because I thought I wouldn't have another chance to have something, and that something included leaving my daughter behind. She was 4 years old when I left her with my mother's sister. He said it was only for a short time, that I would return with money, with a house, with a new life for both of us. But I knew, deep down, I knew I wouldn't come back, because I chose the illusion of freedom, alongside a dangerous man, instead of the responsibility of being a mother with the tools I had. I wrote this in my notebook with a heavy hand. I cried like a child, because saying that, even if only for the paper, was like rubbing salt on an old wound that never healed properly. For years, I blamed the system, poverty, men, circumstances, and yes, all of this had weight. But at that moment, writing alone in the early hours of the morning, I admitted I was also an accomplice in my absence, and that, more than any prison sentence, is what kept me from myself for so long. The next day, I took the notebook to the women's circle. I said I wanted to read something. Nobody interrupted. I read every word. My voice choked, my eyes teary. When I finished, the silence that followed was not one of judgment. It was welcoming. One of them held my hand and said that courage is not just about facing others. It's facing yourself with lucidity. I came home lighter, not because the past has changed, but because now he was whole. No holes, no omissions. In the evening, I called my daughter. I asked to see her the next day. When we sat on the porch, I handed over the notebook. She said it was hers, that I could read whenever I wanted or never. But there was something inside that I never had the courage to say out loud. She held the notebook, looked at me for a long time, then hugged it to her chest. I didn't say anything, and he didn't need to. Sometimes silence is also the answer. Over the next few days, I continued writing, not just memories, but desires. I started recording videos for myself, small records where I talked to myself, to the woman I was at 20, at 30, at 40. I say what I wish I had heard back then. I say she wasn't weak, that she was trying, that she did what she thought possible. These videos are not for anyone to watch. They are just so that, One day, if I forget who I was, I can remember with affection, with less judgment, with more humanity, this last. Confession is not an open wound. It's a healed brand. It stays there visible so that I never forget the price of silence, and so that I never again choose silence when I can choose the truth. If you're listening to this and you also have something you've never told anyone, know that every secret weighs heavily, and that all the weight can be placed on the ground when we decide to stop carrying it alone. If this story reminded you of something that hasn't been said yet, write the word truth here. Because the truth, even painful, is the only thing that doesn't rot over time. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, share this story with someone who needs to know that there is still time. There's time to say it. There's time to listen. There's time to forgive yourself. Today dawned with the smell of wet earth. The rain, it fell slowly during the night. And now the yard looks different. The leaves are clean. The earth is dark, alive. I walked barefoot to the garden and stood there, feeling the coolness rising through my feet. I closed my eyes and thought about everything I've experienced so far. I thought about the pain, the absences, the injustices, the mistakes I made, and the forgiveness that I am still learning to accept. But most of all, I thought about what was left. The words remained, the ones I said too late, the ones I never said, and the ones I finally had the courage to say. The names that hurt me remained, the faces that moved away, the hugs that took a while to return. The silence that hurt me for years remained, but today it no longer governs me. And there was also love, a love that is not perfect, that has no guarantees, but that now truly exists, and that's enough. When I started telling my story, I didn't imagine anyone would listen to the end. I thought it would be another old woman opening her heart in a world that only hears screams and youth. But I was wrong. On the other side of the screen, I found people like me, people who have fallen and gotten up more times than they can count. People who were also forgotten, devalued, silenced. People who survived, and that, despite everything, he still believes that there is beauty in continuing. To you who stayed with me until now, who listened to every block, every piece of my memory, my deepest thanks. Not an empty thank you, the kind you say out of politeness, but a thank you that comes from the soul. Because maybe you don't know, but every time you heard my voice, every time you commented, shared, wrote a word, you pulled me back into life a little more. And today I can say, without fear, that I am alive. Not just breathing, but existing with dignity. Many people told me that my story was too heavy, too sad, too ugly to be told. But if there's anything I've learned, it's that what isn't told rots from within. And I didn't want to rot in silence. So I spoke. I spoke to you, I spoke to the world, I spoke to myself. And ultimately, the greatest liberation came from that. Not justice in the courts, nor immediate pardons, but the simple act of listening to me and recognizing me. Life is made of cycles. Some end in silence, others in noise. Mine won't end either shouting or shutting up. It will end in peace. And this peace is not because everything worked out. It's because I accepted that not everything needs to work out for us to find meaning. Today, what moves me is not what I lost, but what I leave behind. I leave words. I leave an example. I leave memory. And if this touches just one person who is thinking about giving up, then it's worth it. If you are this person, if today you woke up feeling that no one listens to you, that no one sees you, that your story doesn't matter, please don't erase yourself. You are more than what they did to you. You are more than the silence they imposed. You are more than the dark room, the cold plate, the removed bed, the cruel word. You are living history. And as long as you have breath, you have a choice. And your choice may be to start now. My choice was not to die in silence, and that changed everything. And if you have a mother, a grandmother, an aunt, a neighbor who is aging before your eyes, really look at her. Ask, listen, play with respect. Don't wait for her to disappear to find out who she was, because every elderly woman carries a world inside. A world of battles that no one sees, a world of losses that no one consoles, a world of silences that deserve to be broken. My last request to you is this. Don't allow someone's dignity to be decided by age. Respect white hair, honor the wrinkled hands, And never, ever treat an elderly person like a burden. Because one day, if you're lucky, you too will grow old, and you'll want the world to still listen to you, still see you, still value you. If this story moved you, woke you up, made you think, made you want to change something, write the word gratitude in the comments. Gratitude for life. Gratitude for the memory. Grateful for still being here. And if you can, share this video with someone you love. Sometimes it's this simple gesture that saves someone from silence. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, leave your like. Here we don't tell stories about those who had it easy. Here we tell stories of those who walked in the dark, tripped over stones, and still chose to continue. Because that's what living is. It's not about always winning. It's about not giving up on being whole, even when the world tries to break you. And may you, wherever you are, never forget what I'm going to say now. It's never too late to regain your dignity. It's never too late to choose the truth. And it's never too late to become what life tried to stop you from being. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for staying. Thank you for believing that even with a difficult past, I could still be a whole person. That was my story, but it could be for many. And maybe, with courage, one day, it could be yours too.